this is a really interesting trick with player-created terrain, but if the target that you cast your Q on is next to player-created terrain, then it stuns them, even if you don't knock them into it. Like, let me show you. So just Q him after the force wall. You see that?
What?
Yeah. Check this out, dude. Yeah, Q him when he's on the wall. Yeah, you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so like that's just a Diablo tip in general, but it works out pretty well in certain fringe scenarios.
Like, he misses all, but he can still get a stun off.
Yeah, you'll probably find more use out of that with the Leoric, but like it's just a good thing to know, and like it's something to be aware of if you're ever playing Diablo. So what's really important with Force Wall, like it's this huge wall, but it starts out as just like that little sliver, that little line, and that line is like the only important thing. Like basically you shouldn't even think about Force Wall as like this huge fat wall. The only thing that matters is that line. Like for instance, like what determines if you like hit or miss a wall when you're chasing somebody is whether or not you put that line in front of them. Because like yeah, it takes a second for the force wall to set up, but that line starts blocking them from like as soon as you put it down. So say like you were to go and put the center right off of Super Boss Guy like I'm about to do, like it'll push him to the side. And that's actually really helpful when you have the range, because you can just like do that and push somebody off of a channel. It's really only useful after level 20. After level 10, or like before level 20, you can just like auto attack them to stop a channel. But yeah, like you can do that. You can do it with this tribute. I believe you can do it with the nukes on Warhead Junction. You can do it with the items on Hanamura. Like I said, it's only really useful after level 20. And if they're too close to it when they do it, then it doesn't always work. But I mean, it's worth a shot. Yeah. Like, see how he's standing a little bit off from it? Like, there has to be like a straight line from you through the enemy player to the item to get them out of cast range. Like watch, go a little bit down again like you were before. Yeah, and then like, it might not work this time. See what I mean? Like, there has to be a straight line. So like I said, it's a pretty fringe trick, but it can actually come in handy in certain situations. And also just knowing that force wall, like the only thing that matters is that little sliver. It helps you hit your walls, because like I said, you won't think of it as that big wall. And also the push, like just that little push that you get when you put a force wall down inside their hitbox, depending on like which side they're on of it, like that actually can help you like get them closer for a kill, because it lets you really push the limits. Like when you know exactly what needs to be there, it helps you really push the limits of what you can and can't do with force wall. So let's see, there's I want to look for a good corner here. Because there's one of my favorite tricks involves how to use corners in this game, but I don't see like a good 90-degree angle. So like say he's like slightly out of my range. Alright, go. Say that this Leoric is like slightly out of my range. You wait until he's around the corner, and because he does that, the range between you is temporarily shortened. Like as you're still going down and he has to go around this corner, he's no longer running in a straight line from you, so he's like just for a second he's closer to you. So that means that like a lot of times when you're chasing somebody and they're out of force wall range, if you know that they're going to go run around a corner, you can still hit them with the wall as they go around the corner and you're still around it. And that also is really good because the wall, when you do it, like go back over there, Josh. Like when you're walling someone right there, you make a slanted wall. Like it's not straight up and down or straight sideways, it's like slanted at an angle like this. So now if you'll notice, like Super Boss Guy, he's kind of stuck. Like he can't sit right there, but if he wants to go around the wall, then he actually has to walk like to the right. Like he wants to go left, but if he's trying to get to safety right here with this slanted wall, he has to go away from where he wants to go. So it's either stand still and die or run away from safety and die. So like a slanted wall is actually like one of the best walls you can get if you can only connect one side of the wall to the environment. There's this bush right here, and if I just go and put the force wall down entirely within the bush, like Super Boss Guy cannot see it. And like I said earlier, the only thing that matters is that the sliver inside the force wall, like the little part that it starts out as, the only thing that matters is that that is sticking out through the wall. And then like if you put the sliver too deep in the bush, then they can walk inside the bush and they get vision on it. So you want to make sure that you have the sliver as close to the edge of the bush as possible, which means you have to put yourself at like a perpendicular line from the bush, so that way you can do it absolutely perfectly and not have anything sticking out. So that's the kind of positioning you need. You know, if you're looking for an invisible wall, you're looking to be perpendicular to the bush, and you can do it. You can do it sideways too. Like you don't need the whole bush in the wall. Like say you were to do a wall like that, like they can't see the other side of it, so they can't see the rest of the wall. So it's still basically invisible. That's not really good with a long bush, but it's really good when you have like a small bush, I don't think there's one on this map, but like say you had a bush like this size and it's in like a small little place like here, then you would just go put a force wall down like that, and this is a bush right here. That would be invisible to them, and like invisible walls are really good because the enemy team, they just like will mash their faces into it because they're sitting there going like, oh, why can't I get in the bush, and like they don't realize they're even being walled off. So a lot of times it'll waste an extra second. So then, like, this is a trick that I've shown a lot of times, and I use it all the time on stream, but like if you just put a force wall down underneath a Grave Golem boss, and only Grave Golem bosses, I think. I'm trying to think, it's just any NPC boss that works like this. No, only Grave Golem, because it doesn't work with, actually, no, I think it doesn't work with, Warhead. Yeah, but yeah, you just put it down. You can put it down in the middle of the attack animation for the boss, and it helps. So Force Wall Tassadar is actually really insane for stopping bosses, because you get the shield, and, like, you get the shield to stop damage on structures, and you also get Force Wall to stop the attack animation. So overall, just Force Wall Tassadar is ridiculous for boss defense in general. Like I made a video where like I drop force walls underneath the boss on 100 skull golem in Haunted Mines, and that it also works in Haunted Mines, of course, and it works with Entomb as well. Like if you'll notice, like Super Boss Guy is dropping Entomb, and it does that. Like it's any player created terrain. Like that's not a force wall thing in general. It will stop. I believe it stops to kill Sergeant Hammer's barricade, the one that's created by her level 13 talent. So, like, it's just any player-created terrain. Force Wall is obviously, like, the easiest and lowest cooldown one to apply. I don't think that many people take Barricade at 13 on Sergeant Hammer. Maybe they do, and I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've seen a Hammer in NA. So, like, say you're in this situation where you've got a guy that's about to run from you, and your team is over in one direction, and you have two different, like, areas to wall. Like, you could wall that, or you could wall the other place, like, right there. Generally, like, you want to wall them into your team. Like, it seems super obvious, but, like, a lot of people don't do this. Like, just run this way. Super. Okay, like, say you've got this guy running, you know, your team is over in this direction. Maybe not, you know, that obvious. You want to wall that. Like, you want to make the conscious decision to wall the path that leads him away from your team rather than that. Because, like, so many Tassadars, they just look for the wall the first opportunity they get. Like, say that in this situation, Leo decided to run right, and, like, he wasn't even going up, then that's fine. Like, that's exactly what you want. You don't even need to wall him, and you can actually hold your wall in that case, because he's running straight into your team. Like, you want to just coax them into your team, and the same logic works the other way around. Like, you want to stop them from running to their team. Like, if you have vision on the rest of their team, and this is, like, one thing that Oracle is really good for, especially with, mental acuity at level 7 with how low the cooldown gets. Like, if you can see their team, you obviously want to force wall them away from running into their team. It forces them to fight more split, or perhaps not even be able to save their guy at all. Like, there are 3 different types of walls, and they all serve, like, really different purposes. Like, you've got the 2-end wall, it's just both ends are connected to the environment, and it blocks off something completely. Like, they just straight up can't move through. And that is, like, a lot of times the best wall you can pull off, but a lot of times, like, you can't do that. So sometimes you gotta go for, like, this 1-end wall right here. That's actually a bad example. See, sometimes you gotta go for the 1-end wall, like, oh god, guys, Core's dying. Hold on. Hold on.
Reset structure, dude. No.
Okay, I forgot about that. Sorry, I'm going back to the spot we were just at. It's like sometimes you gotta get a 1-end wall like that, and the thing about this is, like, 1-end walls, they're convenient. Yeah, like, you're gonna be able to place way more 1-end walls than you are 2-end walls. And the thing about them is when you put down a 1-end wall like this where only one end is connected to the environment, like, they're going to run to the open end almost every single time. Like, people are just really predictable about this. Like, you put that down and they're going to run to the right every time. Pretty much almost every time. And then, like, you know, sometimes you just can't connect the force wall to anything. Like, you just got to put it out in the open. This means that, like, this is just, like, kind of a desperation wall, or, like, when you only need the wall to block it a little bit. Because, like, obviously they can just walk around this. Yeah, so, like, a lot of times I'll do this kind of wall if my team is chasing, and like, we're right about to get on them, but they're, like, just out of reach. Like, that's when I'll use this wall. See, like, and there's a really good example of the Diablo combo. Like, right there, that was very well done. And then also, there's just, like, the super basic Diablo combo stun into your own wall. Really good. Like, really super good for playing Tassadar Diablo. But yeah, like, you do no-end walls just out in the open, like, when you need them, generally. Like, obviously, that seems kind of obvious, but it's just when you only need, like, a little bit of blocking, or you're just, like, they're just a little bit out of kill range, that kind of thing. Or I also use it really often for splitting teams in fights. Like, the no-end wall is actually really good, because in a fight, like, the healer, it's super common, even up to GM. The healer will overextend, and you just drop a no-end wall right on the healer. I actually did that a couple times earlier tonight, and they're just completely screwed, because all you need is just that extra second, and then, like, your Greymane hops on them, and you just instantly win the fight. So, no-end walls definitely have their place. Like, all of them have their place. Like I said, like, sometimes, you know, if you can drop a two-end wall, like, that's amazing. But sometimes you need to drop a one-end wall, and just recognize that when you do, they're going to walk to the open end almost every single time. And sometimes you're going to drop a no-end wall, just because, like, you only need, like, a little bit of blocking, or you just need to split the team. I just remembered another thing. It's actually really common to use, well, not really common, but it's really effective to use Force Wall to block certain abilities. I think my favorite one to do is Cho'Gall. Like, say Cho'Gall's about to pull your entire team. Like, say you're all clumped up. Say you're all clumped up like this, like, and Cho'Gall's to our left. If you just drop a Force Wall like this, like, it actually doesn't do anything. So, you know, your 8-second cooldown, like, nullifies however long Upheaval's cooldown is. So, like, that's, like, one really good usage. Another one that I actually use fairly often.
You're talking about the pull, right?
Yeah, the pull. Like, you just drop pull in between your team and Cho'Gall, and it doesn't do anything, because it doesn't pull you through the wall. And then another really common usage of that kind of thing is when we're doing boss on Cursed Hollow, and the enemy team has a Falstad, I will drop a wall on the point from where I think Falstad is about to gust, and that stops Falstad from gusting our team off of it. Another example is Dahaka. Right when Dahaka is casting Tongue, you put a Force Wall down in between Dahaka and the person he's casting Tongue on, and even if Dahaka lands the Tongue, like, he won't pull them. He doesn't even pull them around the wall, they just get stuck on the wall. You can also block Zagara's Banelings with Force Wall. I know you can actually push people out of Mosh Pit. That's a really good one. Like, when I was talking earlier...
Doesn't it stops ETC?
I don't think it stops it. It moves the Mosh Pit. Like, it doesn't stop the Mosh Pit. It moves it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it stopped it.
No, just like it doesn't stop the channels on the Tribute. Like, you have to move them out of range of the Tribute to get it to stop. Like, so you move the Mosh Pit, but that's it. So I guess, like, if you had, like, 3 people on the left edge, then I guess you could either, like, do a Force Wall to push them out of Mosh Pit, or you could do a Force Wall on the ETC, which is probably easier, depending... It just entirely depends on your situation. You could push the ETC to the side and get him out of moshing. It's kind of like how, I don't know if you still can, but in you could Void Prison people as Zeratul and then nudge them. Like, just walk up to them and push them as the Zeratul, because you don't get affected by it, and you could... One of, like, the most amazing things you can do with Force Wall to block is Butcher's Lambs to the Slaughter. Like, when he pops Lambs to the Slaughter, you just put a Force Wall down in between Butcher and the guy that's getting lambed, and Butcher just can't do anything about it. And like I said, it's like with Upheaval, you're basically nullifying, like, a huge cooldown with just an 8-second cooldown. Super effective. Tassadar in general is just, like, a really good Butcher counter and synergy, because when you have him on your team, like, you fix his weaknesses and you help his strengths. Like, his weaknesses can be sometimes, like, the enemy team can just walk away, and, like, you help with that by slowing them with your auto attacks and also Force Wall if you decide to go that route. He has heavy lifesteal synergy. Like, when his heal, I think it's his W, when his heal isn't up on auto attacks, you just put the shield on him, and then he can keep healing up. So it really covers up that weakness of how they can just run away from his heal. And then also, he's a really big body that's very likely to get focused, and he's very likely to take lots of damage. He's very easy to hit. So you're actually going to, like, pretty much be guaranteed to get plasma shield value on a Butcher. So, like, Tassadar Butcher is actually an insane combo, and it's also a really good counter because he deals, like, almost only single target damage. So again, you're really likely to get plasma shield value, especially if you throw it on the person that he puts his lifesteal on, because then he has to choose whether or not to hit into plasma shield and give you full value, or to switch targets and waste the thing. So either way, you're getting some pretty good value out of throwing your shield on the person that he's focusing. Like I said, you throw down the force wall, you completely nullify his lambs to the slaughter, and also he has no escape, so force wall just basically means it's a guaranteed kill on Butcher whenever you land it on him. Also, that's another thing to note, is that Ghost Walk or Wraith Walk by Leoric goes through Force Wall, and that's something that you really have to take into consideration when you're like choosing whether or not to take Force Wall or whether or not to cast it, is like, can the enemy team get over it? Like, Li Ming can jump over it, Falstad can E over it, just like a million different things. Like, you have to know what the enemy heroes do, and whether or not you can, you have to know whether or not they can get over it. So that means, like, if they have a bunch of people that can get over it, you might not want to take Force Wall. If you do end up taking Force Wall and they have a couple people that can get over it, you'll want to wait until those abilities are down. Or if it's a really long cooldown, you can put down the wall to force them to use it at a bad time, and then as soon as they use their ability to get over, you just cancel the force wall and keep going. That's just something that you have to be thinking about. Like, think about your own team's abilities with force wall. Like, for instance, you might want to let the Ariel get there before you force wall, so that way she can whip, or you might want to let Diablo get there so he can charge, let them get in position. And at the same time, you got to be thinking about if they can jump over the wall. And like whether or not like say Li Ming pops her teleport, then you know it's just free walls and you can go right through with it. Yeah, so for Stitches in particular, let's show that again, right here. Say he's about to hook your teammate and you know he's going for like the hook gorge. You put a force wall down like this, and then it can stop him from getting the hook gorge combo. Whoa! What is that? What is that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has something to do with how far away the force wall is. So get back in position. So if you'll notice, the first times I was leaving the force wall touching his model, but then after that I'm putting it off of him, but not with enough space to fit in D-Shibes. So it can't put him in front of Stitches, and there's not enough space with the wall because the wall is blocking under, so it forces Leoric over there. So one more time. That is actually just so strange. Just get in the bottom of this little U right here. Okay, so anytime you see an enemy player get in one of these, this is like an instant death sentence because you just throw this, and then both sides are blocked. Like, and there are lots of these. It's like anytime a player gets in one of these, this is like just asking for you to throw the force wall in. And like, there's one of these to the right and left of the God, where is it? There's one of these slightly above the middle turn-in to the right and left on Towers of Doom, and it's like one of the most common places that I use this wall. Like, anytime a player gets in here, guaranteed amazing wall, very easy to cast. Like, you can cast it from over here, you can cast it from like over here. Just like, these little spots are your best friend when you're playing Tassadar. Like, anytime somebody gets in there, pretty much a guaranteed kill. There's one on Haunted Mines, like all of that. Really watch those nooks and crannies. Stopping melee with Force Wall is actually pretty big. Like, it's kind of related to the trick I was talking about with Butcher, where you just use it to block lambs to the slaughter. But no, like, when people are hitting your towers like this, like say I'm an enemy melee hitting the towers, you just put a Force Wall down like this, and they can't get in melee range. So that actually saves you like a significant amount of melee siege damage from the enemy team. Oh, can we showcase blocking the Kerrigan combo? Yeah. And it stops them from even getting pulled in the first place. It's like what you do with Gust or what you do with Upheaval. So say you think, like, as Leoric's chasing your teammate, you just, do that. Try and telekinesis. Like, he can't do it. He still has the range to do it. Like I said, you want to do this as close to your teammate as possible. So that way, because it gets, like, Leoric's Q gets a lot thinner the longer it is. So the further away he is when he does the telekinesis, the harder it is. Because, like, you see, at this range, like, just barely anything of the Q is poking out at all. So it makes it much harder to pull it off, especially with how unpredictable telekinesis is, with how it'll position them after the force wall. So just blocking telekinesis by putting a force wall close to your ally, the same way you would do it with Kerrigan combo, could actually be really effective. But with both of these, you have to do it in a predictive nature. Like, this is not something you can do to react. You have to see it coming. So knowing cooldowns and just recognizing how the enemy team is playing can really help with doing this kind of thing. Here, while we're here, actually, there's actually one more thing, and that is my favorite wall spots, like, just in general. Like, the enemy gate is actually perfect for putting down force walls, and it's probably because it was built for a wall, but anyway, like, Like right here, when the enemy team is trying to run through their gate, this is like free kill city with Force Wall Tassadar.
Yeah, show them.
Because like what happens here, like be on the other side, Josh, and just poke your face out. Like someone will poke their face out just a little bit. When you do that, you just instantly wall them. Like when you're sieging, you should just be sitting here like with your cursor on this. Like all you gotta do is just like set your auto attack to like a tower, and then just sit here like with your cursor on it, just ready to instantly drop that force wall as soon as anybody steps beyond the wall. Also, a lot of times, like just when you're chasing, they'll run through this gate thinking that they're safe, and then you drop the force wall, and you get a perfect two-end wall when it's connected to the towers. Or like I said, like those are two common uses: when you're chasing someone, and then when they poke their face out while they're defending sieges. Like I've gotten so many free keeps just because like we were sieging a keep, and then somebody poked their face just barely beyond the gate, and I just instantly force walled them. There's also another really common one that's really helpful right here. It's just beyond this part. But when people, say you didn't get them right there, when they're trying to run right here in between the well and the fort is a really common wall spot, and then also the other spot in between the tower and the fort is also an extremely common wall spot, and in between the wall and the tower, or yeah, the wall and the fort. Like this area, they basically can't run anywhere, because if they run to the gate, they die because you wall them at the gate. And then if the gate's down or whatever, or you didn't get it in time, if they run down, they die because there's a free wall spot right here. There's a free wall spot right there. There's a free wall spot right here. There's a free wall spot in between the tower and the fort. Like this whole spot right here on like just generally on any map, like at the enemy forts and keeps is one of the best places to get force wall kills in the entire game. So to sum all of that up, sliver is what's most important with force wall. You put it inside a bush for an invisible wall. It's how you determine whether or not you can push a hero. It's how you determine whether or not you'll be able to hit a wall in the first place. Corners are a great way to catch people that are slightly out of range of force wall, and also a lot of times the best one-end wall that you can do is a slanted wall. Because like I said, they're either trapped in place or they have to walk away from where they want to go if they're trying to get to safety. And also blocking abilities is a huge deal with Force Wall as well. You block Cho'Gall's Upheaval, you block Falstad's Gust, you block Kerrigan's Pull, you can block Telekinesis, you can block Stitch's Hook. Like just the pure playmaking ability with that is insane, and if you're playing perfectly, you can take like 10 deaths off of your team. Just take into account the enemy or the abilities of both your enemies and your allies. All of that stuff is super important to think about. And then if you have a choice about where to force an enemy player to go, you want to force them away from safety and into your team. Like that's something you should be taking into account. Like if you can see their team, like if you can see when you're chasing a player, if one path goes to their team and the other path doesn't, you force them to go away from their team. That's the same thing, like you force them to go into your team. And also Oracle is a really big help with that kind of thing. When they're chasing away and you think their enemy team is nearby and you have to make that choice about where to use Force Wall because they're at an area like let's see, like right here. Like right here. So you have to like make a choice about it, about where to force them to go. Oracle is really good for seeing where their enemy team is and where that you can yeah, I didn't know that either, Rickzone. Oracle's really good for choosing where to make them go. Like that's something that you should be thinking about as well. Also, you should be popping Oracle in team fights anyway for the value on reducing your basic ability cooldowns. I'll close this off by saying just a few of my favorite Tassadar combos that aren't like Tracer, Vala, Greymane, the ones that everybody knows. So Artanis is actually, in my opinion, just an insane combo with Tassadar. Like, his shield works based on his percentage health. So you let him dip below 75% health, and then you put the shield on him. And because shield doesn't actually influence what your max health percentage is, like some people think that like if you throw a shield on someone, their maximum health is larger, so percentage damage does more, and that's a misconception. Like that's not actually how it works. So like if an Artanis goes to like 74% health and you throw a shield on him, he's still at 74% health. There are a lot of situations I've actually had where an Artanis on my team will drop to like 20% health and I'll throw a shield on him and he will actually just survive for like 15 straight seconds because he's getting the double shields and like he's just unkillable. Like a Tassadar Artanis combo when the Artanis is below 25%, it's almost unkillable. Then Diablo, of course, is an insane combo as well with Tassadar. You can knock people into Force Wall with his devastating charge, and it's really easy to get shield value on him because he's going to be really far forward, and he soaks up skill shots with his huge body, and people are going to shoot him because he's really far forward, so you get really easy plasma shield value with him. And also, like I said, there's just the great Force Wall synergy. And then with Butcher, like I said earlier, Tassadar fixes his weaknesses and plays to his strengths. You can't just walk away from Butcher when he has a Tassadar on his team, because he's going to be slowing you by 30% with his auto attacks. 20% I think before level 10, I want to say. Yeah. He's going to be slowing you by 20% before level 10, 30% after level 10. So he's going to be slowing you with his auto attacks. So you can't just walk away from the Butcher. He lets Butcher get lifesteal outside of his brand. So that's also really good. He helps Butcher just set up kills super easily with Force Wall or Archon. Like, you can go Force Wall and set up kills for Butcher and stop the kills from running away. Or if you have, like, a really divey team, you can go Archon, and then when the Butcher goes in, you can also dive with him by just taking Archon. And, like, Archon basically makes Tassadar a dive without actually having to go anywhere, because your range is so long, especially with 60-second Templar's Will. So you have really good options with Butcher all around, and you're also a really good counter because he does so much single target damage, and you just shield that single target damage. So overall, just if there's a Butcher, Tassadar's a great pick. Like, that's what I can say. Like, obviously that's oversimplifying it, but just like, he's so good with and against Butcher. And then for my final example, I'd have to say like Kharazim, because Kharazim, he's heavily invested in auto attacks. And he's actually really good at making value on your shield, because your shield only lasts 4 seconds. So a lot of times, like, players actually struggle with getting lifesteal value out of your shield. Because, you know, like, they'll be running away, you'll throw the shield, it'll take them a second to react, and they'll only get, like, 3 or 4 autos off of actual lifesteal. Whereas Kharazim, you shield him, and then he immediately pops E, and it'll heal, like, almost half of his health if you took the lifesteal talent at level 4. And a lot of times you're going to be taking the lifesteal talent at level 4 if you have a Kharazim, because that means you have a Kharazim auto attacker, you have a DPS auto attacker, and you yourself might be an auto attacker. So overall, just Kharazim has really good value with Tassadar, because you're going to need another support anyway. And in my opinion, Kharazim is actually one of the best supports in the game. Like, he has like a 50% pick rate in Korea in the last 2 patches. They pick him all the time, and he's really good at being aggressive as well. And if you're going Force Wall, you need to be aggressive, because like I said earlier, Force Wall, to make up for the value that you don't get from Archon, you need to be aggressive and create kills, and that's what Force Wall allows you to do. It allows you to create kills that otherwise would not happen. Like, that's the entire allure of the ability, other than what you can do defensively with it. And Kharazim works with that so well. Like, you're getting good auto attack value, good lifesteal value. His E, you know, the sudden burst of fists, works extremely well with the short lifesteal window. He easily follows up on Force Wall aggression. He's a second support. Like, Tas Kharazim is absolutely insane. Tas Artanis is insane, Tas Diablo's insane, Tas Butcher's insane, and all these combos are so good. So, you know, like, you should branch out a little bit instead of just like the typical like Tas Tracer, Tas Vala, Tas Greymane. Like, because there's just so much more to it, and these picks are just so much fun and extremely effective. One more thing I can think of for Force Wall is, a lot of times, if you're positioning safely, which is really easy to do with Tassadar with your extremely long range and cast ranges, like your extremely long attack and cast ranges, a lot of times you won't end up using Dimensional Shift in a fight until you're chasing. Like, say, you know, the enemy team starts backing off and you chase. Like, a lot of times you save Dimensional Shift so that way you can use it to chase and get Force Walls that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Like, that's just another way that the game rewards proper positioning. Like, if you don't have to use Dimensional Shift to save yourself, you can use it to get more kills. So in that way, like, being smart with not taking damage, like, helps you create kills, which is obvious, but I mean, like, this is just a huge example of it. Like a lot of times you need to play in such a way that you, well, not need to, but a lot of times it's good to play in such a way that you still have Dimensional Shift for Force Wall, because it just opens up so many opportunities for you. And also, Dimensional Shift can mean that you can get in position for a good Force Wall that that would normally get you killed, but then you can just like Force Wall and then pop Dimensional Shift after. So overall, like, Dimensional Shift is actually heavily related to Force Wall. And you need to be aware of that. You need to have proper positioning so that you can have it when you need it, in order to just get the best force walls possible. Because like I said, for most players, I would actually recommend going Archon in almost every situation. But if you really take all this information into account, I think Force Wall can be the better choice in a majority of your games. If you just use these tricks, like use all these tricks, use these combos, use, proper aggression. Because like I said, you need to be aggressive to make up the lost value from Archon. If you do all of that, Force Wall can actually be a really insane choice. And I think that's everything I have to say about it. Like, completely everything. Huge thanks to D-Shibes, to N-Dog. Who is N-Dog, by the way? And to Super
Pure
Boss
skill,
Guy.
Baby. This is what number one GM looks like, baby.
Thanks to whoever that was. And huge thanks to Rexagon as well for helping me film this. You guys are great.